Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Powerful Perspectives. I want to share a story with you today. The other day I was talking with my sister and we were talking about dancing. Now, neither of us are professional dancers or anything. We haven't necessarily received classes or training in that, but it's something that we enjoy doing. And she was talking about how she loves to dance, for example, while she's doing the dishes or doing some kitchen work, and she just kind of gets in her element and gets some good music going and just, she loves it. And it's something that I really enjoy also. I really enjoy it a lot. I love music in general. I love singing. I love instrumental music. I love dance. I love musical theater, like everything that is music. I just love it. And I was telling her, we were talking just kind of about this and about dancing specifically. And I told her, it has been a long time since I have really danced. Like, I don't know that I can remember when, like, or where I was kind of the last time that it happened, but it was brief. And I didn't really let myself go. Like, I didn't really let myself lean into it. It happened in my old apartment, so where I lived just previously to now. And yeah, it was probably while I was doing kitchen work, while I was making food or doing the dishes or something. I think I was playing some music and it just kind of got into the flow, and I did like move around a little bit. And I did lean into it a little bit, but only for like a couple of minutes. And then I just kind of petered out, or like I just kind of, it fizzled out. Like I couldn't really continue with it. And I was telling my sister, like, because she asked me if I had done it, on my own, because we were talking about doing it out in public also, and I was like, yeah, no, it's been years since I've danced in public. She asked, well, do you do it on your own? I said, well, like, yeah, there's been a couple times, here and there, but it's been really hard for me to just kind of let myself go, and really lean into it. But especially like as soon as there is like just even like one person, and it doesn't matter who they are either. Like, it doesn't matter if it's like someone who's like really goofy and silly and really just extroverted and doesn't really care. It doesn't matter if it's someone that I know well or a perfect stranger, like a complete stranger. It doesn't make any difference. Like, as long as there is someone there to like watch me, like, that's it. Like, I can't do it. And so we were talking about these things, right? And she was asking me like why that is, and we had been talking earlier in the conversation about how oftentimes when I think about things in my life, I can kind of figure out what's at the core of it if I give myself some time, and especially if someone helps like ask some proactive questions, to get me thinking about it. So as we were thinking, this happened, like we were talking about this phenomenon of me just loving dance and not having done it for so long. And I was talking about just kind of how there's like a block there. Like, there's some kind of wall or something that I'm beating up against, and it's been there for a while. And I wasn't really sure what it was, but there was something, right? And I could definitely recognize that there was something holding me back from that, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was exactly. And then as we continued talking, like, it kind of snapped for me. And I thought I would share it with you. What I realized was that the reason, at least for me personally, why I had been having such a hard time leaning into to dance and leaning into that activity, even though it's something that I genuinely love, is because I had and I have had, and I still have to a significant degree, quite a lack of carefreeness in my life. And I put that link together, or I don't know, I would say it was inspiration, or just kind of something clicked for me in my mind, where it was just that carefreeness. My last number of months, and I could argue years, have been quite stressful, and there's been a lot of change. There's been a lot of exciting growth and a lot of things happening, and I'm grateful, and genuinely, like, I would say that I'm happy, but but I don't know that I necessarily show it. I don't know that I necessarily sit in the happiness and the joy. I wouldn't say that I feel a ton of excitement in my life at the moment. I would say that I feel like there's a lot of things that I'm chasing, and a lot of things that I've been chasing for a long time. And I know that that's not healthy. I know that it's not healthy to chase things, to chase moments or events or blessings that that'll come in the future. We need to exercise gratitude, and it's funny because I do keep a gratitude journal, and I've been keeping it for years, and I do write like every evening, before I go to bed. I sit down and I write down the things that I'm grateful for. I write down where I've seen heaven's hand in my life that day. I write down pride statements, like things that I'm proud of about myself. I write down fears that I faced, in the day. And so I do have this practice of writing these things down, and I would think like that would really help, and that I would really feel it. And yet in some way I'm struggling to. And so that kind of culminated in this idea for me that, the reason that I've had such a hard time dancing recently is because I have had such a hard time feeling carefree. And dance is just, it's an expression of carefreeness, at least for me, And yes, dance can, it's an art form. It can express all kinds of emotions. But I think I've had a hard time doing that. And there's just been so much heaviness and so much weight, so much seriousness and stress that I haven't really let myself go, and I haven't really thrown myself into dance. I've really struggled to do that because I've struggled to feel like I could just let go. I've been holding everything so tight, and I've been trying to make sure that everything is in its place, because there's a lot, and I don't want to lose anything. I don't want anything to slip between the cracks if I'm not organized and if I don't plan correctly. And then anyway, so there's kind of been this rigidity, this uptightness that I think has made it difficult for me to lean into and give myself over to dance. So that's on the one side. That's kind of one experience. And then I had a separate experience that I didn't think of as being connected at the time, but I think it really is. So I'm going to tie it together here. And that was, I was just kind of thinking, just kind of pondering the other day about emotions sometimes, and specifically about bravery. And there have been a few, videos that I've seen recently that have to do with bravery and with facing and turning into and walking into storms. And if there's something chasing you, then you turn around and you chase it back. So these ideas have kind of been in my mind recently. So I was thinking about bravery and thinking about it as not just as a concept, but as an attribute and as a characteristic. And the thought came to me that you don't have to feel the emotion in order to act it out. And I'll go into that in a second. Like this idea, like it's been presented in other ways. There have been people who talk about, like just do it scared or do it tired. Regardless of how you're feeling, do it. Like do the thing that you should be doing, just despite your emotions, right? Don't let your emotions kind of choose what you're going to do or define your decision for you. You can do it despite how you're feeling, right? And there's plenty of people, in the psychological community, in various different communities, even just on social media, who are kind of discussing these types of ideas. And I've appreciated all of them, and they've resonated with me, to various degrees at different times. But this is kind of how it clicked, or how it made sense for me. And I'm still struggling in some ways to put it into words and to articulate it exactly the way that I feel it. But what I came to was that, you know, if you're in the face of fear, for example, like if you're up against something that is overwhelming and scary, and you do not feel brave, you feel overwhelmed, you feel scared, you feel small, you can't always choose to feel brave, right? Like you can't, like you're feeling shy, you're feeling scared, you're feeling timid, you're feeling intimidated, you're feeling overwhelmed. That's what you're feeling, and you can't will yourself out of those feelings, if that makes sense. It's really, really hard to do. You can't just choose to feel brave. You can't choose to feel it. But what you can do is you can choose to act it out. So you can look at the options that are before you, and you can say, okay, what would be the brave thing to do? One YouTuber that I follow likes to kind of say it this way. Well, actually, there's a few people who say it this way. They're like, how would you act if you felt like this, right? So like an example might be, if you really loved yourself and if you really loved your life, how would you act? How would that look, right? So it's kind of like putting yourself in a hypothetical state of mind or state of being, or even like an attitude or an attribute or a character trait, kind of envisioning that and saying, what would a person who felt that do? How would they act, right? And you kind of put yourself in those shoes, and then you act it out, right? And it's not acting out in the sense of like playing a part or playing a role. It's acting out in the sense of choosing to do that thing. So you take the choice, you take the decision, you take the action, the behavior that would both require and also express that attribute, right? So if someone, like let's say that someone is kind of yelling at you or putting you down, like intimidating you, they're like calling you names, they're just kind of trying to really like pull you down, right? The brave thing might be to stand up and speak out and say, you know what, like that, I don't think I'm like that. You know, that's not me. That might be your opinion, that might be what you see, but like that's not me at all, right? So like the brave thing might be to defend yourself. And the timid and scared thing might be to say like, oh yeah, you're probably right, or just kind of like to shrink away and, you know, to take that on, and kind of let that define you. And so by choosing the decision that requires the behavior and the attribute that you're after, that you want, right? In this case, bravery. By choosing the brave choice and then enacting that, you know, like living it out, you know, like doing it, like actually throwing yourself into that decision and into that action and that behavior. By doing so, like you flip the tables, like you really you turn the table, you flip the whole situation on its head, because you are stepping into the attribute by virtue of your choice, by virtue of your action, by virtue of your behavior, right? You are embodying that attribute through what you are doing, through your actions, through your decisions, your behavior. And because you live that out and you act it out and you do it, like you embody what that attribute is, like because you live it out, you know, like you act it out, you do it. And so that is brave, you know, like just making that choice is bravery. It's an act of bravery. It's a decision of bravery. And by choosing to step into that decision, you embody that attribute or that characteristic. And if not always immediately, sometime during the course of, being in that action, or maybe only in hindsight, but at some point, I think you'll be able to look back and recognize and feel the reality of what that was. You'll be able to recognize, that was brave. Like, I felt brave, and it was, you felt scared in the initial moment, but through taking on yourself the action and the decision, you chose bravery. And through doing that, I think the feeling and that feedback of bravery, it joins you in that. And so this is kind of the thought that went, in my mind as I was kind of pondering these things. This was, again, a separate experience or situation, and it was specific to bravery. But then I thought about, how could I link this with dance? Maybe I don't feel super carefree right now. But what if I were to dance anyway? What if I set aside that time and just threw on some good music that I enjoyed, and I just let myself loose and danced, Could it be that the feeling of carefreeness would join me in those efforts, Could it be that I could invite the feeling through just stepping into the action and the decision by actually doing it and living it out, right? Doing the thing that would embody or express that characteristic or attribute. Could the choice and the action and the behavior actually invite and even, create the feeling? And I think it can. And I can actually attest that it can. So today I started into that a little bit. I didn't just dance. I've also been wanting to sing for a bit, and so I was singing. I was recording some. I like to do like karaoke. I have like this karaoke app where you can just sing and you can join with other people, and it's kind of fun. And so I did that, and I was singing along, and I was dancing and moving while I was singing. And so it wasn't just dancing for dancing's sake. It wasn't isolated as a dance, a dancing experience, but there was definitely a dance involved. And I was singing and I was being in the music, and I was letting the music kind of flow through me and just take over me and surround me and envelop me. And I leaned into it a bit more. And as I did, and as like in that moment, I did feel more carefree. I did. Like my stresses and my worries, they just they dissipated and they paused, for that moment. And I did it for a couple hours, and really enjoyed it. And so I guess this would be my principle and my testimony and my experience that I would add onto the list of others who have experienced similar things and who've expressed and talked about them in similar ways and maybe some slightly different ways. We might have, different vocabularies or languages that we use to talk about it, different ways of phrasing and formulating these ideas. But this is how it was for me, and this is how I experienced it and lived it out. And I'm excited to incorporate this more in my life and see what becomes of it. I'm excited for the empowerment that comes through knowing that I can choose feelings through choosing decisions, through choosing actions. And as I take those actions that would reflect or embody the types of feelings that I want to have, I can hopefully invite and introduce those things into my life. And I can have some insight. I can have, not insight, I can have some power or control or I can contribute, I can contribute to how I feel through how I act and what I choose. And I think that's a really encouraging and a really empowering principle that I would just like to share with you all today. Let me know what you think about it. I'd love to hear your comments and your experiences. If you've done this yourself, I'd love to hear like how that was for you. Definitely leave that in the comments, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye for now.